The cry that crossed the stars. The message began as a faint whisper in the void, a ripple of static, a broken voice, and then words that carried fear across the galaxy. ... We are dying. ANYON. Please help, they are here. ... It was the last hope of the Terralan Empire, a proud civilization now reduced to hiding in the shadows of their own burning worlds. Their enemies, the Kreeth swarm, had already taken 14 colonies. The skies above those worlds were nothing but smoke and drifting wreckage. The ground was littered with bodies no one dared to bury. In the grand chamber of the Terralan High Council, the leaders sat in silence. The holographic display of the distress call flickered in the air, replaying again and again, each time sounding weaker. Counselor Virel's voice was heavy. We have sent this call to every known world. The Union of Worlds refuses to answer. The Zedran Federation says they are regretfully unable. Even the mercenaries will not come. They all fear the swarm. Emperor Kale's eyes were hard and tired. Then we are alone. The chamber's silence was broken by a sudden beeping from the comm station. The operator looked startled. We have a response, Your Majesty. Every counselor leaned forward. From who? Kale demanded. The operator hesitated. From Earth. Whispers filled the room. Earth? At primitive Deathworld? The humans? Most of the galaxy saw humans as dangerous, unpredictable, and above all too reckless to survive long in civilized space. They were fighters, yes, but they were also seen as troublemakers, the kind of species you avoided if you valued peace. Counselor Virel scoffed. They are not part of the Union. They have no obligation to help us. The operator swallowed. Message incoming. Playing. No. The holographic projector hissed, and a human face appeared. A man in a dark uniform, eyes cold as steel. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that made the alien leaders sit straighter. We're coming. Just 2 words. No promises, no questions, no hesitation. And then the transmission ended. The room was silent again. But this time, the silence was different. It carried something strange, something the Terralan leaders hadn't felt in years. That hope, that days past. The Kreeth swarm's attacks grew bolder, their fleets surrounding the last Terralan stronghold world, Aerith Prime. The enemy ships blocked every escape route. The civilians crowded into underground shelters, listening to the distant thunder of bombardment. Emperor Kale stood on the balcony of his palace, looking up at the dark sky. Every night he expected to see the enemy's final push, the firestorm that would erase his people forever. Instead, on the 7th day after the human message, something else appeared. The first human warship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Above Aerith Prime, it was huge, larger than any Terralan vessel, and its black armor was marked with deep scars from old battles. Then another appeared, and another. Within minutes, an entire formation of human ships filled the sky. Heavy cruisers, missile carriers, battle frigates. And in the center, a massive flagship whose silhouette blotted out the stars. From the palace balcony, Kale's voice trembled. They came. The civilians in the shelters emerged to see for themselves. For the first time in months, they looked to the heavens and felt something other than dread. The comm systems crackled again. The same human voice returned. This is Admiral Rains of the Terran Defense Fleet. All Terralan civilians prepare for evacuation. All combat units fall in behind our ships. We are taking the fight to them. The last part of his message made the alien generals freeze. Humans were not just here to defend. They were here to attack. From the enemy fleet, the Kreeth commanders snarled at the sudden arrival of so many warships. They cannot be serious. One Deathworld species against the swarm? They will burn like all the others. But the humans did not burn. They moved. The Tyralan sensor crews watched in shock as the human fleet began forming a tight wall in space, their engines glowing bright. Massive cannons slid into place. Missile hatches opened. Every ship was ready to strike. From the flagship, Admiral Rains gave a single order that would echo in Tyralan history forever. Advance. The human fleet surged forward, weapons lighting the dark. The first barrage ripped through the enemy line, tearing apart Kreeth destroyers before they could react. The shockwave of explosions lit up the sky above Aerith Prime like a second sun. On the ground, Tyralan children stood on rooftops, eyes wide, as they watched the humans carve a path through the unstoppable swarm. And in that moment, Emperor Kael knew they had not been saved by chance. They had been chosen. Asterisk why the galaxy stayed silent. The Tyralan people had seen many wars. They had fought border skirmishes, survived pirate raids, and even stood against two great empires. But nothing compared to the Kreeth swarm. The swarm did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They moved like a living storm, consuming everything in their path. Once they marked the world, that world was doomed. The galaxy knew this. That was why no one had come. In the grand archives of the Union of Worlds there were hundreds of sealed reports fleets that had faced the swarm and vanished. An entire generation of the Viren Alliance had been wiped out in less than a month. The Corran Star Kingdom had seen its royal fleet reduced to drifting husks in a single battle. Every government had learned the same lesson. When the swarm comes, you hide. You pray they move on. And you never, ever answer a distress call. The Tyralan Palace War Room, Emperor Kael studied a map of the surrounding sectors. Red marks showed enemy-controlled space. The circle around Aerith Prime was closing. Counselor Varel's voice shook. We have received new messages from those we begged for aid. The Zedran Federation sends their condolences. The Union says they cannot risk their fleets. The Draxan Protectorate will not even reply. Kael clenched his fists. So they have all chosen cowardice. But before the Council could argue, a new report came in this time from their orbital defense station. Your Majesty, the human fleet has taken position between us and the enemy. They refuse to retreat. They've signaled that they will hold the line until our people are safe. In the alien capital's streets, civilians whispered about the humans. Why are they here? What do they want? Some thought humans came for payment, others for glory. But Admiral Rains had sent no demands, no conditions. Only orders to prepare for evacuation and for Tyralan warships to fall in behind the Terran fleet. The first time in years, Tyralan soldiers felt pride instead of fear. They began fueling their ships, repairing weapons, and preparing to fight alongside these strange allies from a dangerous, far-off world not far away. In the command ship of the Kreeth swarm, the enemy leader studied the incoming data. Humans, he hissed, primitive savages from a death world. I had heard stories of their wars, of their refusal to surrender. But this is suicide. His second-in-command replied, Shall we crush them quickly? The leader smiled. A thin, cruel smile. No, let them attack. I want the galaxy to see their failure. Back on Aerith Prime, night fell over the capital city. The sky was filled with silent, black silhouettes of human warships holding their position. Every so often, their engines flared like watchful eyes in the dark dot in the palace. Emperor Kael stood at the window, staring upward. He did not know the humans' full plan. But one thing was certain. They were not afraid of the swarm. And that was something the galaxy had not seen in a very, very long time. Hook ending. On the bridge of the Terran flagship, Admiral Rains reviewed his final battle plan. His officers looked tense. The enemy outnumbered them 2-1. Rains closed the data file and said quietly, "They think no one will fight for the Tiralan people. Let's prove them wrong." The order was given. Every Terran ship powered its weapons. The battle for Aerith Prime was about to begin. Asterisk. The arrival of the first shot was not from the humans, not it came from the Kreeth swarm, a long spear of plasma that cut across the darkness and slammed into the Tiralan outer defense ring. The station's shields flared, then failed, exploding into drifting shards. Before the enemy could fire again, the human fleet moved. From the bridge of the Terran flagship Vanguard, Admiral Rains gave a calm order. All ships advance. The humans came forward like a single. Living beasts. The Titan-class battleships led the way, their black hulls reflecting the dim light of Aerith Prime's sun. Behind them, lines of cruisers and frigates kept perfect formation. Even the smallest. Corvettes moved with deadly precision, covering blind spots and preparing to intercept incoming missiles. The Tiralan citizens watching from the ground saw at first a strange, menacing glow building along the human ship's weapon arrays. When the glow peaked, space itself seemed to ignite. The first Terran volley roared into the swarm's forward line. Enemy ships vanished in flashes of white fire, their armored shells torn apart as if made of paper. The shockwave rippled through the debris fields, sending chunks of metal spinning into the void. For a moment, the galaxy's unstoppable. Predators hesitated. Inside the Tiralan command center, Emperor Kale stood frozen, his eyes locked on the tactical display. "They destroyed 4 enemy destroyers in the first strike," his officer whispered. "No, 5, another corrected, awe in his voice. Kale's gaze shifted to the humans' formation. They weren't just fighting. They were controlling the battlefield, forcing the swarm into positions they didn't want to be. On the Vanguard, Rain's voice cut through the comms. "Cruiser Group 2 cut off their left flank. Missile carriers, target their command ship. No one fires without a kill shot." The humans fought with a style no Tiralan had seen before. They didn't waste energy on defensive maneuvers. They pressed forward, absorbing hits, trusting their armor and countermeasures. Every move they made brought them closer to the heart of the swarm formation. Then came the moment that silenced even the most battle-hardened. KRAETH. The Vanguard's forward cannons opened up twin beams of pure kinetic energy, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. They punched through the Kreeth flagship's shields, tearing its hull wide open. A burning cloud of atmosphere and debris vented into the void. The swarm commander's voice snarled over enemy channels. But there was something else beneath it. Now in the shelters of Aerith Prime, Tiralan families hugged each other as the sky lit with distant explosions. A young Kyralan child asked his mother, "Are the humans winning?" She didn't answer at first. She was too busy watching the impossible happen. "Yes," she finally whispered. "They are." By the time the first engagement ended, the swarm had been pushed back from the planet's immediate orbit. The humans didn't pursue. They held position, daring the enemy to try again. Admiral Rains stood on the bridge, arms crossed. "Round 1 is over. They'll come back harder. Let's be ready." Hook ending. Far in the enemy's rear lines, massive new shapes were forming larger ships, bristling with weapons. The second wave was coming, and this time the swarm would not underestimate the Deathworlders. Asterisk. First strike. The second wave of the Kreeth swarm came without warning. They emerged from hyperspace in a ripple of distorted light too massive. Dreadships, each the size of a small moon, flanked by swarms of smaller escort craft. The dark, insect-like hulls glistened under the pale sunlight of Aerith Prime. In the Tiralan command center, alarms blared. Officers scrambled to update the tactical map. "They've doubled their numbers," one shouted. "And they've brought planetary siege weapons," The room fell silent. Siege weapons meant the enemy wasn't just here to win. They were here to erase the planet completely. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Admiral Rains studied the incoming formation. "They think they can scare us," he said quietly. "Let's show them why fear is a two-way street." He turned to his weapons chief. "Target the nearest dreadship's forward core. Full kinetic spread. Fire on my mark." The Terran fleet shifted, breaking into 3 attack wings. The Titan-class battleships drew the swarm's attention with heavy frontal fire, while the missile carriers slipped to the side, preparing their payloads. Frigates darted between them like wolves, hunting for weak spots. From the ground, it looked like chaos streaks of blue and white light flashing between ships, but from the human's perspective, it was precision. Every maneuver was part of the same lethal dance. The first real shock to the swarm came when a single Terran frigate TDF Resolute broke formation and charged headlong toward the nearest dreadship. The enemy tried to swat it aside with heavy plasma, but the Resolute weaved through the fire like a knife through cloth. Its commander's voice crackled over open coms for Aerith Prime. The ship's nose lit with a sudden burst that launched a hypervelocity penetrator the size of a shuttle. The projectile hit the dreadship's armor at near light speed. For half a second, nothing happened. Then the enemy vessel's front section erupted in a chain reaction, blowing away entire decks at the swarm's formation. Wavered dot in the Terralan command center. The officers stared in disbelief. That was one ship, whispered in aid. One Deathworld ship, Emperor Kale. Corrected, his voice low but full of pride. Admiral Rains wasn't done. "All missile carriers mark enemy command signatures and fire. Leave nothing breathing." 1,000 missile hatches snapped open. A storm of guided warheads poured into the void, weaving between debris, dodging countermeasures, and slamming into swarm vessels. The enemy escorts died in clusters, torn apart before they could regroup. The Kreeth commander, enraged, ordered his own dreadship to fire its planet-killer beam toward Aerith Prime. The beam charged, glowing sickly green, but before it could fire, the Vanguard unleashed both of its main cannons in a single devastating shot. The blast ripped through the dreadship's central reactor. The massive vessel shuddered, then split apart, its wreckage scattering across the starfield. From the ground, it looked like a star had exploded. The Tyralan people erupted in cheers, but Rain's face stayed cold. "This isn't over," he muttered. "We've hurt them. Now they'll come for blood." Hook ending. In the distant black, deep beyond the wreckage, something vast began to move larger than any ship yet seen in the battle. It was coming toward them, and even the humans didn't know if their weapons could bring it down. Asterisk. Holding the line, it came out of the void like a nightmare. The Leviathan class, Swarm Mother, a vessel so large its shadow blotted out Aerith Prime's sun. Its surface shifted like living flesh, plates of black chitons sliding over each other. As it moved, rows of organic cannons pulsed with poisonous green light. The Tyralan command center fell silent. No one had seen one in living memory. These ships were said to be invincible cities with teeth, worlds that could move and kill. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Admiral Rains did not flinch. All ships formed the wall. The human fleet shifted instantly, massive battleships locking side by side to create a barrier between the planet and the enemy. Cruisers slid into the gaps, their shields overlapping. Smaller ships darted above and below, weaving a protective net. From the ground, it was like watching a black shield rise. In the sky, the Swarm Mother fired first. A beam of searing plasma struck the human wall, slamming into the shields. Blue energy flared, buckled, but held. The humans didn't back away. They returned fire in unison, every cannon, missile tube, and railgun unleashed at once. The void lit up with the exchange. Debris rained down from shattered swarm escorts, their organic hulls tearing apart under the relentless assault. But the enemy kept coming. Smaller Kreeth vessels swarmed around the humans, hammering at weak points. One Terran cruiser, TDF Sentinel, took a direct hit to its reactor. Instead of retreating, it powered forward, ramming into an enemy destroyer and detonating in a blaze that took both ships docked in the Tiralan shelters. Civilians felt the shockwave rumble under their feet. The Leviathan pressed closer. With each hit, the human shields flickered more violently. Admiral Rains knew they couldn't hold forever. He opened a private channel to his captains. "We hold this line until the last civilian is off-planet. No one breaks formation. No one runs. If they want Aerith Prime, they'll have to climb over our graves to get it." There was no hesitation in the responses. Only one word repeated. From ship to ship, understood. The evacuation transports began their desperate run from the surface, engines burning white-hot as they climbed toward orbit. The swarm spotted them and sent interceptors racing to cut them down, but the humans were ready. A wing of Terran frigates surged forward, intercepting the interceptors in a brutal, point-blank dogfight. Explosions blossomed around the transports, but none made it through. From the Tiralan command center, Emperor Kale watched the feeds in silence. He had seen fleets fight before, cold, cautious, always calculating retreat. But this was something else. The humans fought like every breath mattered, like losing was not an option. For the first time, he understood why the galaxy feared. Deathworlders. The Leviathan roared again, its main cannon charging for a killing strike. This time, it aimed not at the fleet, but at the escaping civilians. Admiral Rain's voice cut through the comms. "Redirect all fire. Bring it down now." Every Terran ship turned, focusing their weapons on a single point on the swarm mothers. Massive hull. The void blazed with hundreds of impacts. Chitin plates shattered. Internal fires erupted. The Leviathan shuddered. It did not fall, but it stopped its shot, hook ending. Sensors lit up with a warning. 2 more Leviathan-class signatures had just entered the system. The humans had saved the transports. But the real storm had only just arrived. Asterisk the turning. Point the 2 new Leviathans slid out of hyperspace like twin shadows. Each one was larger than the Vanguard, their hulls bristling with organic weapons that pulsed with sickly green light. The Kreeth swarm had decided to end this in one blow. From the Tiralan capital, people stared up at the sky, seeing not stars, but a wall of black, moving creatures. On the Vanguard, Admiral Rains studied the incoming monsters. His fleet had already taken heavy losses. The shields on several battleships were cracked, and ammunition stores were running low. His weapons officer said quietly, "Sir, we can't stop all 3. Rains didn't look away from the tactical map. "We don't have to. We just have to stop them here." Then he opened a secure Channel 1 the Tiralan command couldn't hear. "Activate Project Aegis." Across the human fleet, encrypted signals flashed. Certain ships' sleek black destroyers broke formation and drifted apart as if retreating. But instead of fleeing, they began to deploy strange, cage-like structures. From their hulls, each section unfolded into glowing arcs, connecting to the others with lines of pure energy. Slowly, a massive sphere began to form around the human fleet. The Tiralan generals watching the feed were baffled. "What are they doing?" "That's not a shield. It's too large." Inside the forming sphere, the energy began to pulse. The space between the arcs shimmered like boiling water. Rains gave the order, "Engage graviton core." With a deep, vibrating hum, the structure came alive. The arcs blazed brighter, and the space inside the sphere started to bend. The enemy ships nearest to it slowed, then shuddered, their hulls groaning under invisible pressure. The Kreeth swarm had never seen a human graviton weapon before. No one in the galaxy had. The first Leviathan tried to push through the field. Its cannons fired, but the shots bent off course, dragged into the gravity distortion. Its engines screamed as it fought against the pull, but the field grew stronger. The creature ship's hull buckled. Fissures ripped open. Internal explosions tore it apart from within. The Tyralan command room erupted in shocked cries. One of the invincible monsters had just been crushed without a single direct hit, but Rains wasn't smiling. Field integrity. At 60%, his officer warned. We can't hold it much longer. The second Leviathan adapted. It stayed just outside the sphere's range, bombarding the human wall from a distance. The third began circling wide, hunting for a gap in the humans' formation to strike at the planet. Rains made the call instantly. All ships focus fire on the circling target. Leave the second to me. The humans unleashed a blistering wave of railgun rounds and missiles, hammering the flanking Leviathan until its chitin cracked open like a smashed shell. But the cost was high. 2 more Terran cruisers were lost holding the line. Meanwhile, the second Leviathan charged its main cannon. If it fired, the energy could rip through both the human fleet and Aerith Prime's surface. Rains gave one last order. Overload the graviton core. The energy sphere blazed to life, brighter than any star in the sky. The distortion tore at reality itself, pulling in debris, shattered ships, and the second Leviathan. Its massive form twisted unnaturally, armor snapping like dry bone. Then, in a single blinding flash, it was gone, compressed into nothingness. The weapon shut down. The arcs of the sphere collapsed. Silence fell over the void. The Tyralan command stared in stunned disbelief. They had just witnessed the impossible, not once, but twice. But Admiral Rain's voice broke the quiet. Get the civilians to safety. We've bought time. But the swarm isn't done. The promise, the final wave, came like a storm. Dozens of smaller Kreeth vessels poured into the system fast, darting predators designed to hunt survivors. They swarmed toward the human line, weaving through debris, firing in all directions. The Tyralan shelters, the sky was a chaos of light. Explosions bloomed in the upper atmosphere like false stars. On the vanguard, Admiral Rains stood tall, his voice steady. They want to break us with numbers. They think we'll run. Let's show them we don't run. His words traveled through every ship in the Terran fleet. Pilots tightened their grips. Gunners locked their sights. Damaged ships held their positions instead of retreating. The Deathworlders were not giving up their ground. The battle became a blur of motion and fire. Human frigates danced between enemy formations, cutting down Kreeth fighters at point-blank range. Heavy cruisers tore apart corvettes with broadside railguns. Missile carriers, nearly empty of ammunition, launched their final salvos with pinpoint precision. Every shot bought time. Seconds for the last Tyralan transports to break through the atmosphere and climb toward safety. Then, as the last transport cleared orbit, Rains opened a channel to the entire fleet. Mission priority has changed. Evacuation complete. All ships push forward. The human fleet, battered and scarred, surged out from their defensive wall like a tidal wave. Instead of holding the line, they took the line, crashing into the heart of the Kreeth formation. The Kreeth had never fought an enemy like this. Most species broke after heavy losses. Most fled when the odds turned. Humans? They fought harder. They became the storm. The smaller enemy ships were torn apart in minutes. The survivors scattered, retreating toward the system's edge. The last to leave were the damaged escorts of the Leviathans limping, smoking shapes vanishing into hyperspace. Silence fell in the stillness, the Terran fleet drifted above Aerith Prime. Dozens of human ships bore new scars-blackened hulls, missing plating, venting atmosphere, but they remained dot in the Terralan capital. Crowds poured into the streets, staring upward. Some cried. Some bowed. Others simply stood in awe dot from the balcony of the palace. Emperor Kale hailed the vanguard. Admiral Rains, you saved us. And not for reward or power or territory. Why? The human's face appeared on the hologram. His expression was calm, but his words carried the weight of iron. Because when you ask for help, we answer. That's what it means to stand with humanity. The transmission ended. The Terran fleet began to move again, slowly turning toward. Deep space dot, but the galaxy had heard. Word spread through trade lanes, war councils, and outlaw channels alike. When the Deathworlders come, they don't just fight. They finish the fight. And they never, ever leave a friend behind. Final closing hook. In the black far beyond Aerith Prime, the shattered remains of the Kreeth fleet drifted in silence. But deep within that wreckage, something stirred watching, learning. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. Asterisk.